The galaxy was full of stories, but not all of them were true, and not all of them were safe to remember. Among the many worlds and countless civilizations was one tale that was often whispered in low voices and dismissed as myth. It was the story of Earth. Aliens of many races had heard the name, yet they treated it as a legend. Something children repeated around dim lights when they wanted to feel afraid. In the great halls of the council, the word Earth was spoken only in jokes or warnings. No one believed it had ever been real because no trace remained in maps or archives. Records of ancient wars were complete, yet this one planet seemed to have been cut out of history like a page torn from a book. Still, every few centuries, a fragment would appear, a melody in a dead language. An image of a blue and green sphere, a whisper of a warrior race that once stood against the stars. Fragments did not fit with the rest of history, and so the scholars called them mistakes. They said Earth was a shadow story created by desperate races long gone. But there were always some who doubted this neat answer, and wondered if truth had been buried too deep. The council chamber was filled with light from 1,000 crystals, and the leaders of many species sat in silence as an old signal was displayed. In the air, first they thought it was noise, a broken stream from a forgotten relay, but then a voice emerged. It was not alien, not like any sound in their records. It was strong and raw, and carried a tone that made the chamber cold. The voice spoke in words that machines struggled to translate, but when the meaning finally appeared, it froze everyone. In place, the message was simple. This is the bargain. This is Earth. The chamber broke into arguments as the voice repeated. Some said it was a trick planted by enemies to cause fear. Others argued that the very word Earth should not be spoken because it was cursed. Oldest members looked pale as if they had seen a ghost. They remembered rumors told by their ancestors, rumors of a species that burned brighter than any other and then vanished without reason. Ships were sent to track the origin of the transmission, but what they found was stranger than silence. Signal did not come from any known beacon or world. It floated out of the void itself as if it had no source. The scientists ran their scans again and again, but each time they reached the same impossible answer. The voice had come from nowhere and everywhere. It was as if the myth itself had risen to speak. Some tried to laugh it away, yet the unease in their eyes betrayed them. The universe was wide, but no story lasted this long without a core of truth. The question was not whether Earth had existed, but why it had been erased so completely. In the following days, whispers spread across fleets and colonies. Pilots told each other that Earth was returning. Merchants said the humans had survived in secret. Priests declared it was the sign of judgment. Fear moved faster than fact, and soon the council feared chaos more than the message itself. They tried to ban the recordings, but it was too late. Every child could already repeat the words. This is the bargain. This is Earth. The more they tried to suppress it, the stronger it spread. The myth had become alive again. In dark corners of the galaxy, some remembered what little they had heard about humans. They were not the strongest or the most advanced, but they had fought in ways others could not understand. Their wars were fierce, their strategies strange, and their will unbroken. If they had truly vanished, then perhaps it was mercy for the rest of the galaxy. Or if they had survived, what were they doing and hiding all this time? What were they waiting for? These thoughts kept leaders awake in their towers and soldiers restless in their bunks. The myth no longer felt distant. It felt close, breathing in the shadows. On the 7th day after the signal, a patrol ship near the rim of council space detected movement. At first it appeared as debris, but then the scanners confirmed structure. A vessel was drifting, old but intact, carrying design patterns unknown to any archive. The patrol hailed it without answer. Then, slowly, lights flickered on across its hull. Symbols marked on its surface matched the fragments that had survived through myths. The patrol officers stared in silence as the name became clear. It was a human ship. The word spread like fire, and panic broke out in the chamber. For so long they had believed Earth was nothing but dust and memory, and now a vessel stood before them like a ghost returning from the grave. Inside the council chamber, silence. fell heavier than stone. No one knew what the next message would bring. Some wanted to destroy the ship before it reached them, to erase the threat before it became real. Others said they should listen, because if the humans had survived, then they must hold secrets beyond imagination. The voice returned, not from the drifting ship, but through every speaker in the chamber. Calm and certain, as if it had been waiting for this moment. It said again, "This is the bargain. This is Earth." And then, after a long pause that made the air feel thin, it added new words. "You forgot us, but we did not forget you." The chamber filled with a cold silence. For the first time in centuries, the myth of Earth was no longer just a story. It was standing at their door, and now one could tell if the visitor was bringing salvation or doom. The drifting ship moved like a shadow through the void, and no one could explain how it had survived for so long. Its surface was scarred and ancient, yet the engines still glowed faintly, as if something inside refused to die. When the patrol first boarded it, they expected nothing but a dead husk floating in the dark. Instead, they found the faint heartbeat of a life form. It was human. The figure sat in the control chair, eyes closed, as if resting after a long journey. His body was worn and his uniform tattered, but when his eyes opened, they were steady and sharp. He looked at the patrol as though he already knew them. Without fear and without hesitation, he spoke words in a language that their machines struggled to decode. The translations soon appeared on their screens. "Earth remembers." Message spread back to the council at once. For many leaders, this was no longer rumor or myth. It was proof. The living human had returned from the ashes of history. Debates grew wild inside the crystal chamber. Some demanded the human be executed immediately before his presence ignited unrest. Others argued he must be questioned, because he carried knowledge no archive contained. Council feared him, yet curiosity pulled them closer. Finally, they agreed to bring him before the chamber, under heavy guard. But when the human entered the hall, he did not look like a prisoner. He walked with calm steps, shoulders firm, eyes unflinching. He looked at the crowd of alien leaders, as if he had seen them before, as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. He spoke with a voice that carried across the room. The translators caught his words and projected them in many languages. "You forgot Earth," he said. "But Earth did not forget you." Murmurs rose and many in the chamber shivered. To hear a living human say the forbidden name with such certainty broke through centuries of denial. The human did not shout nor plead, simply stood and let the weight of his presence do the work. He explained that Earth was never destroyed, but hidden. The world had wrapped itself in shadows to escape something the galaxy had not yet faced. What that threat was he did not reveal, only that the time of hiding was over. He had come as a messenger. The leaders pressed him with questions. Where had Earth been all this time? How had humanity survived without the galaxy's support? Why had they waited so long to return? The human gave few answers. Instead, he repeated a phrase that stirred both fear and curiosity. "This is the bargain." He would not explain the details yet, said they would be revealed when the council was ready to listen. Some called him a liar and claimed his very presence was a dangerous trick. Others whispered that his calm voice carried too much truth to ignore. The chamber was divided, but none could deny the weight of the moment. The myth had flesh, the legend had a face, and history had opened a door that could never again be closed. That night the human was placed under guard in a high tower overlooking the city of the council. Soldiers watched him, but he did not try to escape. Instead, he looked out through the glass walls at the stars beyond. Reports from the guards said he spent hours in silence, whispering words in his own tongue. Some believed he was praying. Others thought he was speaking to unseen allies. Rumors spread among the soldiers that his eyes glowed faintly in the dark. None could prove it, but fear ran quickly through the ranks. It was said that to meet the gaze of a human was to feel both dread and strange respect. Across the galaxy, people argued in markets and stations. Some were thrilled by the return of the lost species. They saw hope that humanity might bring strength against threats still lurking in the dark. Others feared that the humans would bring war, that they had not returned for peace, but but for conquest. Old legends resurfaced, stories of battles humans had fought long ago, of wars that ended only when entire empires were broken. The more the Council tried to control the information, the faster it spread. Every corner of the galaxy now whispered one name that had once been forbidden: Earth. The human remained calm, as if none of the chaos surprised him. When the Council gathered again, he asked for no throne, no weapon, no demand. He only said once, "More Earth remembers." Then he added, "The choice will come to you soon." His words left the chamber heavy with unease. He was not asking, he was not begging, he was warning. And somewhere deep inside, every leader felt that the bargain he spoke of would decide not only their future, but the fate of the galaxy itself. The council chamber was silent as the humans stood before them once more. Days had passed since his arrival, yet his presence still weighed heavy on every leader. The myth had become flesh, and the galaxy could not look away. Last, the High Speaker demanded clarity. "You speak of a bargain, human. What is this bargain? What does your lost world want from us?" The human's eyes moved slowly across the chamber, meeting the gaze of each species one by one. His voice was steady, neither threatening nor pleading. Earth was never destroyed. Earth was hidden. We sealed ourselves away because of what we learned, what we fought, and what we endured. But the walls cannot hold forever. Now the galaxy must decide whether it stands with us or against what comes. Accept us, and we will fight beside you. Refuse us, and you will face what is coming alone. The words hung in the chamber like smoke. Accepting humanity back into the galaxy was not simple. To welcome them meant opening old wounds and inviting a species no one truly understood. Many feared what humans might bring if given power again, yet the alternative was darker still. If there truly was a threat beyond the walls of Earth's silence, ignoring it could mean extinction. Voices rose in argument. Leaders shouted that this was blackmail, that humans were forcing their way back into power by spreading fear. Others claimed the council could not afford to take the risk of turning them away. The humans stood quietly through it all, as if he had heard these debates before and knew how they would end. When the voices finally slowed, the human began to reveal pieces of the truth. He spoke of enemies that once reached Earth's skies, enemies not seen in any galactic archive. He described battles fought in shadows where entire fleets vanished without trace. He told them of weapons forged not for conquest, but for survival against predators no one had named. His words were fragmented, never full, as if he did not wish to reveal too much too soon. Yet what he shared was enough to chill the chamber. If half of what he claimed was true, then humanity had faced horrors beyond anything in recorded memory, and they had survived. That fact alone unsettled the leaders. What kind of species could endure such storms and remain standing? Still doubt remained. A council elder asked, "If you hold such knowledge, why hide all this time? Why abandon the galaxy while others bled?" The human's answer was quiet. "Because you would not have believed us. You did not believe even in our existence. Speak of the enemy then would have only brought more death." So Earth chose silence, to grow strong behind its veil, waiting until the time came when silence would kill more than truth. The chamber shuddered at his words. It was not an apology, not an excuse. It was a statement of fact. Humanity had chosen its path without asking permission. And now they stood ready to rejoin the galaxy on their own terms. Outside the chamber, crowds gathered to hear news of the human. Soldiers lined the streets, but whispers carried faster than orders. Ordinary citizens debated whether the bargain was salvation or a trap. In the markets, people repeated the human's words as though they were prophecy. "Accept us, and we will fight beside you." The idea of human warriors standing at their side filled some with hope, others with dread. The galaxy was no longer united in disbelief. It was divided in fear and wonder. That night the human was moved again to his high tower. Guards kept watch, but none dared look him in the eye for long. Some swore they heard him speaking to unseen voices again. One guard claimed he saw the stars shift unnaturally when the human looked toward them, as if the universe itself bent to his memory. Whether truth or fear, the rumors spread quickly. The myth of Earth was no longer a ghost. It was a living force stirring unrest across every world. On the next council session, the debate reached its breaking point. One faction demanded the human be executed to end the threat before it grew. Another insisted he be honored as a returning ally. The argument grew louder until the human himself raised his hand. The chamber fell into silence. He looked at them all and said, "Only this, you fear us because you remember what little you saw of us, but you have seen nothing. What waits beyond your stars does not care for your fear. It devours without pause. You cannot face it alone. That is why I am here. That is the bargain." His words struck deeper than any threat. They carried no arrogance, no desperation. They carried certainty, and that certainty was more terrifying than any weapon. When he finished, no one spoke for a long time. The bargain was clear. The choice was theirs. Accept Earth and share in its hidden strength, or deny them and stand alone against a shadow yet unseen. The council was left staring at one another, realizing that the myth they had ignored for centuries was now offering the one thing the galaxy could not refuse: survival. The council had not reached a decision, but the humans seemed to sense their doubt and their fear. He asked for nothing more than a single request. "If you still question what Earth can offer," he said calmly, "then see with your own eyes what we carry." The chamber fell quiet as he placed a small device upon the crystal floor. The machine unfolded like a flower of metal, and from it a projection filled the air. At first, the leaders thought it was simply an old archive, broken footage from forgotten wars. But soon, the images sharpened, and the sound filled the chamber like thunder. They saw men and women in armor rushing into battle, their faces smeared with dirt yet burning with determination. They saw skies filled with fire as human aircraft dived through storms of metal. They saw trenches carved in ruined earth, soldiers holding the line against endless waves, though their numbers were few. The council members watched in silence as one battle after another erupted before them. The images did not look like the clean and ordered wars they knew. These battles were chaos and fire and blood. Yet within the chaos, the humans moved with strange rhythm, adapting with speed no machine could match. They fought not only with weapons but with cunning, turning defeat into victory again and again. Aliens who prided themselves on strategy found themselves leaning forward, their eyes wide, unable to predict the next move humans would take. It was as if they were watching a kind of war none of their academies had ever taught. The projection showed cities burning, skies torn apart, and yet in every scene, humanity endured. Even when they lost ground, they fought again. Even when the enemy was larger, stronger, and more advanced. The humans clawed their way back. The chamber shook not from sound, but from the realization settling in every mind. Humanity had not survived by hiding behind walls of metal or fleets of countless ships. It had survived because their will to endure was greater than anything the galaxy had ever seen. One elder leaned forward and whispered words that echoed too loudly in the silence. "They are not fighters. They are survival itself." The phrase spread through the chamber like a spark. For all their fear of humans, no one could deny what they were seeing. The myth was not only real, but far more dangerous than they had imagined. The human let the projection fade, leaving the chamber in darkness. When the lights returned, he spoke with quiet certainty. "These are only fragments of what you called myths. You erased our name from your records, but not from thee. Truth, we fought enemies you never knew, enemies that still wait beyond your vision. Do you think we survived them by chance? We endured because we learned to fight until the last breath. That is the power you tried to bury, and that is the power we now offer you." Words were not loud, but they carried a weight that bent. The air itself? No one dared to answer at first. They had seen enough to know that the human did not exaggerate, but fear soon gave way to suspicion. A council member demanded, "Why show us this? To frighten us into your alliance?" The human's gaze did not waver. "To remind you that survival is not free. The bargain I bring is not mercy. It is truth. Alone you will fall. We may endure. The words were plain, but they struck deeper than threats. For in their hearts the leaders knew the galaxy had grown complacent. Their wars were small, their enemies predictable. The chaos of human battle revealed how fragile they truly were. And if there was indeed an enemy far greater than any they had faced, then their strength would not be enough. Beyond the chamber, the news spread faster than fire. Citizens whispered about the war footage, describing it as both horrifying and inspiring. Some said the humans were monsters, shaped only by endless killing. Others claimed they were saviors, willing to endure suffering no one else could face. Armies began secretly studying the fragments, trying to copy the strange strategies. Yet no matter how they tried, none could capture the same raw force of will. The myth of Earth was no longer a quiet whisper. It had become a storm moving across the galaxy. That night, the humans stood again at the tower window, watching the stars. Guards whispered that his eyes seemed older than any world, as if he had carried centuries of war within them. When asked why he had shown such terrible images, he answered simply, "Because truth must be seen. Words are not enough." He then turned back to the stars and fell silent. The guards did not speak further. They felt as though he was listening to something far beyond their hearing. In the council's private meeting, leaders admitted what none had dared before. Humanity's forgotten power was real, and it could not be denied. The myth they had erased had returned not as memory, but as a force too vast to ignore. And though the human had offered an alliance, none could shake the thought that perhaps humanity did not need them at all. Perhaps Earth had prepared for so long not to rejoin the galaxy, but to stand above it. The bargain sounded like protection, but in their hearts every leader wondered the same fearful question. Were they being offered salvation, or were they being warned of what Earth would unleash if denied? The council could not ignore the human any longer. The footage had shaken their certainty, and the bargain weighed heavy on every mind. Still, doubt burned like fire. Some leaders insisted that what they had seen might be illusion, carefully crafted, to frighten them. Others argued that no illusion could carry such raw chaos, such depth of will. The chamber was split in two, and the human seemed to know this. When they asked for more proof, he gave only a single answer. "If you want truth, come with me. See with your own eyes." His voice was calm but final. The council argued for hours, yet in the end, curiosity and fear won. A fleet of ships was prepared to follow the human to wherever he intended to lead them. The journey began with silence. The human sat alone aboard his vessel, guiding the fleet into regions of space long abandoned on star maps. The counselors grew uneasy as the stars grew fewer and the void thicker. Navigation systems faltered and strange static filled their comms. It was as though they had entered a forgotten corner of the galaxy. Then the human spoke across the fleet. "You erased Earth from your memory, but Earth never left. You buried our world in myth, but we buried ourselves in shadow. Oh, you will see why." His ship drifted ahead like a beacon, and the others followed, though fear tugged at every heart. At last they reached what looked like nothing more than empty space. Scanners showed no planets, no stations, nothing but void. Many counselors cried out in anger, accusing the human of trickery. But then the stars themselves began to bend. Lines of light twisted, revealing patterns hidden in plain sight. A gate shimmered into existence, massive and ancient, cloaked by technology none of their scientists could explain. The human ship approached without hesitation. He spoke once. "More you wanted truth. Enter." One by one, though trembling with fear, the fleet followed him through the gate. On the other side, the void gave way to a broken yet living world. They saw the blue of oceans and the green of forests, scarred by ancient wounds yet unyielding. Great cities lay in ruins, but light still burned among them. The fleet fell into stunned silence. For centuries they had spoken of Earth as nothing. More than legend, a ghost story told in whispers. And now it stood before them, scarred but alive, its surface carrying both beauty and pain. One counselor whispered the name aloud, as though tasting it for the first time. Earth. The sound carried through the fleet, and for a moment no one could breathe. The human's voice filled their ships again. This is our home. You said we were myth, but here we stand. We bled, we burned, and still we endure. You erased us, but we are not gone. Now you see the truth? His words were not shouted. They carried no anger, only certainty. The counselors gazed at the planet and felt a weight in their hearts. They had mocked Earth as a tale for children, and yet here was the proof alive, undeniable and unbroken. When they landed on the surface, the truth struck even harder. They walked through cities half destroyed by war, yet filled with people who lived with calm resilience. These humans did not look broken. They looked sharpened, carved by struggle into something stronger. Children played in streets rebuilt from ruins, while soldiers trained with weapons unlike any the council had seen. The leaders realized that Earth had not only survived but had grown in silence, preparing for something greater. This was no dead myth. This was a world that had endured centuries of hidden battles and carried scars with pride. Some leaders fell silent with awe, but others trembled with fear. One demanded to know why Earth had sealed itself away and why now it returned. The human messenger finally gave his answer, because the silence is ending. The shadow we hid from is moving again. Soon it will reach you, just as it once reached us. And when it does, your armies will fall. Your fleets will burn. Alone, you cannot stand. That is why Earth offers this bargain. Stand with us, or face extinction. The chamber of leaders that had once mocked the myth now stood on the soil. Of the myth made real, there was no denial left. The truth was carved into every scarred building, every weary yet unbroken human face. The trial was complete. The council had demanded proof, and Earth had given it. But proof carried with it a price. Now that they had seen the truth, they could never go back to ignorance. They had to decide whether to embrace the bargain or risk the coming storm alone. As their ships prepared to return, none of the counselors spoke. They had walked the surface of a legend and found it alive. Their silence was not peace, but the heavy weight of a decision too vast to escape. The human had promised truth, and he had given it. But truth had left them with a greater fear than myth ever had. The fleet returned from Earth in silence, carrying the weight of what they had seen. No one argued now whether the humans were myth or truth. The question had changed. The council no longer doubted Earth's existence. They feared what its return meant for them all. In the crystal chamber, leaders sat with tense faces, their voices lower than ever before. The human messenger stood calmly at the center, as if he had known from the start that this moment would come. When the High Speaker demanded his final words, he spoke them with quiet certainty. You have seen the proof. You have walked our world. Now you must hear the truth of the bargain. Earth sealed itself away because a greater enemy came. Not an empire, not a fleet, but something far older, something that devours. You survived it once, but it is moving again. Soon it will reach you. This galaxy is not prepared. You cannot stand alone. Right. But with us, you may endure. The chamber rippled with unease. The leaders leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the man who carried the weight of forgotten centuries. He continued, We do not return for kindness. We do not return for conquest. We return because war is coming. The bargain is simple. Stand with Earth, and we fight as one. Refuse us, and you will not see another age. His words were not shouted. They carried no rage, only certainty. That made them more terrifying than any threat. Arguments erupted again, though quieter now. Some leaders whispered that Earth was only using fear to seize power. Others admitted openly that they had felt the truth in the scars of the planet and in the unbroken faces of its people. One elder rose and demanded, If what you say is true, then why should we trust you? You hid for centuries, leaving us to believe you were dust. The human looked at him without anger, because we had no choice. To reveal ourselves too soon would have destroyed us both. The silence was our shield, but shields cannot hold forever. The storm is coming. We are here now because the time has come. His answer carried no excuses, carried only fact, beyond. The chamber, news of the bargain spread like fire. Citizens across the galaxy debated what it meant. Some saw salvation, believing that if Earth truly endured horrors no one else could face, then their alliance was hope. Others trembled, thinking perhaps the humans were the very storm they spoke of, using fear to claim dominion. Markets, colonies, fleets all spoke only of Earth. For the first time in centuries, every world was united in a single thought. Humanity had returned. The Council could not delay forever. They knew refusal would divide them and invite panic. Yet acceptance felt like handing power to a force they barely understood. At last, the High Speaker asked the human one final question. If we accept, what does Earth give in return? Human's answer was not a promise of peace nor gifts of treasure. It was a single word: survival. That word struck harder than any weapon. For in their hearts, the leaders knew survival was worth more than anything else, and they also knew Earth was the only one offering it. The council recessed with heavy silence, unable to speak further. The human was returned to his high tower where he once more gazed at the stars, as if waiting for something unseen. The guards asked him quietly, "Will they accept?" He did not look away from the night sky. "They have no choice." Words carried no arrogance. Only the cold certainty of one who had already walked through fire and returned, far beyond the council's reach. In corners of the galaxy where no light touched, something stirred. Fleets vanished without a trace, colonies fell silent, and traders whispered of black stars moving in the void. Rumors of a devourer spread quickly, and with them the memory of Earth's warning. The galaxy began to understand that the bargain was not only real but urgent. They could either take humanity's hand or face the dark alone. When the council finally reconvened, the chamber was heavier than stone. The leaders did not look at each other as they prepared to speak. They looked only at the human, standing, calm at the center. No final vote was announced that day, no declaration made. But in the silence, everyone already knew the truth. The myth had become real. Earth had returned not as legend, but as necessity. And the bargain they offered was no gift, it was the last chance. As the session ended, Human turned once more to the council and spoke only one last time. "You may see our return as mercy or as threat, but it is neither. It is truth. The storm comes. Decide quickly, or the choice will be made for you." With those words, he walked away, leaving the chamber filled with silence deeper than fear. And so the story of Earth ended, not in myth, but in a bargain written in survival itself. The galaxy stood at the edge of a war it could not yet see, and only one truth remained clear: humanity had not returned to beg. Humanity had returned because the end was near, and the last bargain would decide who lived to see another dawn.